When we're in a sales meeting and we want to extract information from the other person, how do we do it without annoying them with constant questions? And how do we also sound intelligent while we're extracting this information? And what are the specific methods that we should even use to do this in the first place? Don't worry guys, we're going to address all these questions right now. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Danilo Caprick here, aka the best dressed man in tech sales. Don't forget it. And in this video, we're going to talk about how can you extract the information that you want when you're in a sales call with a prospect or a client. Better yet, we're going to talk about how to do this in a way that doesn't come off as super annoying or like an interrogation. And we're going to give you 3 specific strategies that you can use on your next discovery call to, again, extract this information in a skillful and intelligent way. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, guys, so the first approach that we need to talk about when it comes to skillfully extracting information from our prospects or clients on a sales call is the hypothesis approach, okay? This is personally my favorite, and it's my favorite for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's very uncommon, okay? Most sales reps do not do this because it takes a little bit more effort, and because of that, it's going to help create a memorable experience for your buyer, and more importantly, it's going to help you stand out, okay? The other thing that we do is we get to naturally use a little bit of human psychology at our advantage when we're using the hypothesis approach. Why? Because think about this, guys. If you show up with a hypothesis about the most important thing in somebody's life and you share it with them, right? 2 things are gonna happen. Either one, you're gonna be spot on and they're gonna say, wow, like, that's super accurate. How did you know that? You know, how did you get to that? Whatever. And they're gonna keep talking about it. Number 2, if you're off, which maybe you are, they're going to correct you. Okay, because people love correcting others and they love to be right. The other thing where the psychology comes in is if you show someone an incomplete puzzle, right, or a puzzle that's 75, 85% done, people's natural inclination is to finish the puzzle, right? If something is almost done, we get a little urge inside our human brains to say, you know what, let me finish that. This isn't quite right. Let me put this here. Let me put this here. And so again, by using the hypothesis, we can show up with a highly differentiated approach. We can also create a new experience for the buyer that's memorable, and we get to use human psychology at our advantage by having them complete the puzzle that we have partially completed for them. The other thing I'll say about the hypothesis approach, you guys, is that it kind of gamifies the sales call as well, because depending how you position it and the way you deliver it on the call, you might be able to turn it into a little bit of a game where you say, hey, you know what I actually did? I put together a hypothesis about the number one thing I think you're trying to do, and if you're okay with it, I'd love to share it with you, and maybe you can tell us how accurate or inaccurate we are with this. Would you be open to that? And they'll probably have an interesting reaction because, again, not a lot of reps are doing this. They don't hear this often. And now they're excited because they don't have to sit through a normal sales call, right? They get to hear your hypothesis. They get to see all your work, and they just get to sit back and listen, right? They get to take it easy. So again, in my experience, I've delivered hundreds of hypotheses at this point in my career, and that has been the most common reaction. Again, guys, buyers do not get this every day. They're excited when they hear somebody doing this work up front, and it makes you look super credible because you've done the research up front. So again, that is the hypothesis approach. In my opinion, one of the best ways to extract information, because again, if you're showing up with that hypothesis, what they're gonna do is either confirm that you're correct, or they're going to fill you in on the details because you were wrong, all right? So again, hypothesis approach, don't forget it. All right, guys, the second thing that we can do when it comes to skillfully extracting information in a call with a prospect or client is, and this is the most common approach, but we can use open-ended questions, okay? Now, you wanna be careful here because, again, most reps are doing this these days, so you don't wanna get in the same bucket as everyone else. So there are some questions that you want to avoid straight up, okay? Do not ever, for the heck of your life, don't ever do this, guys. Gosh, I'm really praying that you guys never say this. Don't ever show up to a call and ask the person you're meeting with, what keeps you up at night? What challenges are you facing? What are you working on? What are your top initiatives? Get those questions out of your vocabulary. Get that out of here. I don't ever want to hear anybody tell me that they're asking those questions on the call because I'm going to throw up, all right? So keep those away, throw them in a lock, throw away the key. I meant to say a safe. But either way, guys, don't ask those questions. They're terrible. They make you sound like everybody else, and they evoke a conditioned response in your client or prospect to say, wow, this is an amateur sales guy. I need to get out of this meeting ASAP, all right? So you don't want to do that. Those are questions you should avoid at all costs, all right? Now, let's talk about open-ended questions that you might want to ask that are actually effective when it comes to extracting information. So one of the questions that I like to ask if I'm not doing the hypothesis approach is, what are the top outcomes that your boss is expecting you to generate in the next 12 months? And I like this because we emphasize two things. Number one, we talk about their boss, right? Which everyone's gonna have a little bit of an interesting reaction when we bring up their boss. Number two, we make it about them. We're saying, what outcomes are you expected to generate from your boss, right, in the next 12 months? And that implies that we're caring about them and we wanna make them look good. Okay, so that's why I like to ask that question, because it's really centered about them. We talk about their boss, and again, it's all about making them look good so we can put them in that position to achieve those outcomes so they can look good in front of their boss. All right, so that's the first one that I recommend from an open-ended approach. Another open-ended question that I really like to ask that's a little bit more specific is, what are the top metrics that your boss cares about? And again, I like to put the emphasis on the boss because that puts a little bit of pressure in the situation. And what I mean is, if we just talk to them about, hey, like, what are the metrics that you care about, that you see, or that you really want to knock out of the park? They might say things that they care about, but they're not really relevant to the business, right? And again, if we're trying to sell something, we want to understand what metrics are important to people at the top, because those are the folks who make the buying decisions, all right? So I like to always put the emphasis on the boss, depending on the role of the person, right? If I'm talking to C-level executives, I will ask, what metrics do you care about that you want to see? Or I might go above them and say, what metrics or outcomes does the board really care about, all right? So depending on the level of person you're talking to, ask about, hey, what are the things that your boss cares about? Because that's going to actually elevate you and get them to talk about the real priorities as opposed to things that they just want to comment about, all right? So I always like to say, what are the metrics or outcomes that your boss is asking you to focus on over the next 12 months, or that they would really like to see, all right? All right, guys, so the third approach that we could use to skillfully extract information from our clients and prospects in a sales call is what I like to call the My Clients approach. All right, now you're probably like, what the heck is the My Clients approach? Don't worry, let me break it down for you. The My Clients approach is literally where we frame our questions from the perspective of my clients. How do we do this? Don't worry, I got you. So what we can do is maybe show up to the call and say something like, hey, a lot of my clients are super focused on attaining XYZ outcome. Is that also something you guys are trying to aim for, or not so much, right? We might also be able to show up and say, a lot of my clients are really struggling with this, this, and this. Have you guys found a good way to go about these things, or are you guys also challenged in that way? We could also say something like, a lot of my clients really hate having to do this, this, and this. Have you guys found a good way to get that done, or are you also in the same boat as them, right? And again, guys, the point here is we want to frame all of our questions from the perspective of my clients. And what this helps us do is, number one, it doesn't sound like we're asking a typical question, because believe it or not, we're actually giving them some value when we share these things in the form of market information. Let me break that down. What I mean, guys, is basically business owners and people in business, they care about what other people are doing. Okay, everybody likes to understand what people like them are focused on, where they're struggling, where they're succeeding, and what they're doing. This is the whole reason why people go to business conferences. This is why people go to lunches and shake hands with others and understand what are they doing, right? This is why networking events exist, all that stuff. So people have a natural tendency and a natural interest in what other folks like them are doing. So if we show up to the call and we say, hey, my clients are doing this, that gives them a piece of insight that they can use to base their decisions on, right? Again, people like that intel. They like to take those data points and see what others are doing so they can form their own choice. So by you framing everything from the position of my clients, you're actually providing value in the form of market information that only you can provide, because you are the rep for those clients. Nobody else has those clients. So you're being able to, again, share those data points and tell them, hey, these are what my people are focused on. What are you focused on? Is there anything similar here, right? So again, guys, the My Clients approach is all about giving value, but doing so in a way that allows you to also extract information about your client prospect. All right, guys, well, there you have it. 3 approaches that we can use to skillfully and intelligently extract information when in a sales meeting. Again, we talked about the hypothesis approach, we talked about the open-ended questions approach, and we also talked about the My Clients approach, all right? So now you've got 3 interesting ways that you can show up to your next sales meeting and extract the information that you need in order to get the next steps that you need. All right, so with that, guys, hope you found value in this video. If you did, please hit the subscribe button below. And also, if you're not doing so already, follow me on LinkedIn, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take it easy now.